I did.
When we use this from a lot in our classes, and when someone's trying to avoid the professor, that's when they say.
I find it.
You got it. Well, good evening and welcome to Pratt's School of Information. I'm Anthony Cosiolo, the Dean of the School of Information. Thank you for taking the time out of this chilly Tuesday to visit the school. Today I will go ahead and tell you a bit about our school, a bit about our programs. We'll take questions from the room. We'll do a brief tour of the facility. And if you have any more questions, I'm happy to stick around and answer them. And also, we are on spring break here, so it's a little bit quieter than normal. But it's kind of also a good time because then we're not bumping into other students and all that kind of stuff. So just a little bit about our school. We are the oldest information school in North America. We trace our roots back to 1890 when Charles Pratt, who you see here, not only created Pratt Institute, but also created the Pratt Institute Free Libraries, which there were these free libraries and he needed a way to train people to work in them. And so the School of Information was born in 1890 and has really existed ever since. It spent most of its life on the Brooklyn campus, starting out here in the main building and then moving into the library in 1896 when that opened. And then spent a good number of years in its own building called the Information Science Center. And then we moved here into Pratt Manhattan Center in 2002 and have been here ever since. Today, we're very much motivated by our vision and our mission, which is really about working to create more equitable, resilient, and diverse futures using information and technology. We're also motivated by our mission statement, which is one of the things that makes us a little bit different among the various information schools out there, is we do really look to make connections with art, culture, and design. So we're kind of the artsy, techie kind of information school, where some information schools are like, big science or like big data. We tend to be a bit more kind of art and design and techie oriented. Just a little bit about who we are. We are an all-graduate school. We have just about 400 students spread across our programs. And then we have about 85 faculty. These are primarily, we have full-time faculty. We have about 15 full-time faculty. These are primarily researchers, scholars. They also act as your advisor. And then we have probably another about 65 part-time faculty. And these are folks who are typically, they have a full-time job during the day and they're coming here to teach at night. And they can really vary everything from library directors, archivists, to UX designers, UX researchers, data science folks, museum professionals. It kind of, stretches all over the place. So we're a really great group of people. So before getting into the specifics of any of our individual programs, I did want to mention some facts that span across both programs. Really, these programs are all pretty much at this point based 100% face-to-face. We never did an online class until COVID. And then we started doing online classes as everyone did. But then we are really at this point back to, I think, 99 or 100%. So there might be like one or two online classes that are hanging around. We might do a few in the summer, but really at this point, we are really a face-to-face community. And that's really because we do value excellence in face-to-face teaching. And there's a lot of great things you can do when you have a face-to-face community. So we're really happy to be working in that space. So definitely if you're interested in an online program, or we're not a great school for you. In terms of we pretty much run all of our courses here at Pratt Manhattan Center here on 14th Street. And our courses really run throughout the day, but I would say the most popular time is 6:30 at night. This is really it's a great option for part-time students to take classes at night. So you can, you could, for example, you could come to school here part-time and take classes at night. Or you could be here all day, you could be here from 11:30 on. It's really up to you. So it's flexible for both full-time students, for part-time students, for working people, for not working people. Either way, you can kind of, come to school. So how many folks here in the room are interested in our library and information science program? All right, good number, good number. All right, great. Yeah, there's a resurgence in interest in library and information science, which we sometimes see. I've been here long enough where I've seen various like waves of, and we tend to get more interest in this program when the economy's not doing so well. So yeah, the economy, I mean, the stock market and all that is doing well, but the job market is not very good. There's been, losses and so forth. So we do tend to see the folks coming to graduate school for this when that happens. So just a bit about this program. This is indeed our oldest program. It's been around since 1890. It is the oldest library information science program in North America. And it is one of 6 programs that was first accredited by the American Library Association back in 1824. So we've been accredited by ALA for over 100 years. And as you can imagine by the name, this is really about developing folks who are out there collecting, managing, providing access, preserving information, and developing all the various services that go around that, that are related. Most students in this program will do it in 2 years. And they'll do a fall, spring, and they're done. So it's really 4 semesters. So it's now 2 years sounds like a long time, but it's really, it's really 4 semesters. So a semester is you're in class for 15 weeks. So it's really, if you think about it, it's 15 plus 15 plus 15 plus 15. So it's about 60 weeks out of 2 years that you will be doing this program. And it is, there's a core curriculum. So these are courses that everyone has to take no matter what their specialization is, whether they want to be an archivist, they want to be a children's librarian, pretty much everyone has to take these classes. And they get into the kind of the core stuff that everyone needs to know to work in this field, things like knowledge organization and reference and instruction and IT, which undergirds so much of what we do. And then there's a huge range of electives you can take. There's 8 electives you take, and we do offer to help folks figure out what their kind of specialization is or what they want to focus in on in this program. We do have these advanced certificates, and these are kind of like a minor, and these are certificates that live within your 36 credit degree, and they provide more specialization. So I'll say, for example, the archive certificate, that's a popular one. It's an 18 credit certificate that lives within the 36 credit master's degree. And it's really oriented to folks who are working to become an archivist, and it's aligned with the Society of American Archivists guidelines on graduate programs and archivist studies. And yeah, so that's a good option. We also do have a certificate in children and young adult library services. So for folks who want to work with kids or teens or children, we have that. We have some other programs too, conservation, digital creation, digital humanities, UX, spatial analysis and design. This is folks who want to get into mapping and GIS. And then from there, we have program concentrations. These are just more kind of informal. They're on our website. They just kind of give you some ideas of like, here's some jobs I might want to do, and here's some courses that could help you kind of get there. But those aren't anything that get declared or anything. They're just kind of there to help you kind of plan out what you want to do. We also do have a 3-year dual degree program, and these are really for folks who want to become super specialists in the area of art and information. So a lot of art museums, art libraries, developing subject matter expertise in some area of art, whether that's contemporary art, Renaissance art, whatever it is. That is sculpture, painting, this is kind of the degree for that. And we do have a huge number of alums who are kind of very much specialized in that here in the US. And I would say with that program, it is also, it's kind of split, so you do half of it here, and you do the other half on the Brooklyn campus in the History of Art and Design program. So it's a pretty neat program. You get kind of the best of both campuses. Um, Although it does require some shuttling around on the J train. So in terms of job titles, like what people do after graduating from this degree, this is just a small smattering of the kind of job titles we see coming out of this program. Archivist, digital archivist, librarian. Um, and then in terms of like where people end up working, we do see a really heavy emphasis, I would say, in kind of the nonprofit cultural heritage sector, museums, colleges, public libraries, publishing, some artist studios, nonprofits. But then we also do have a number of people who go off and work in various companies, although those are not the majority. I would say in terms of our graduates of this program, they're generally happy with the program. In this past May, in our last graduating class, we had 57 respondents in our graduating student survey, and 94% of them, which is just most people really thought the program was a quality program that helped them to work in their profession. So that is the quick rundown of the Library Information Science program. I'm happy to, I'll open up for questions after I get a chance to talk about some of the other programs as well. Did anyone here come here to learn about our data analytics program? Anyone? Anyone? Oh, yes, no? Anyone online? Okay, I have a hand raised online. Thank you, Guadalupe. So I will give Guadalupe the quick rundown on the data analytics program, and then we'll go ahead and move on. So where the library science program is really about collecting and managing information, I would say the data analytics program is a bit more focused on not managing information, but using it in the sense of really analyzing data for visualization, storytelling. That's an area that this program is growing in. And it's really looking to create these kind of data and visualization mavens who are really working with data to tell compelling stories and create useful analysis. It does combine like kind of courses from a number of different areas. It's got statistics, computer programming, usability, research. Students typically will do, it's pretty similar structure to the library science program. It's done in 2 years, fall, spring, and you're done. And students will do a course in statistics, information visualization, computer programming using Python, and then they'll take a wide range of electives that they can take. We do ask folks to do an extra course in data analysis, data visualization, and data UX. But then there's also a bunch of 3 open electives at the very end, which can be an info course, or it could really be any other graduate course at Pratt that aligns with your interest. And yeah, we're always creating new stuff for this program. There is also the certificates you can do in this program in spatial analysis and design, UX, and digital humanities. So I would say one of this is definitely the GIS one is pretty popular, I would say. And we definitely have some great faculty in the area of working with mapping and that combines statistics and mapping. And we also have some great alums doing some work in that area as well. This is a much smaller program, so in May 2025, we had 12 graduates, and they generally had really positive feedback. They thought the program was a quality program, they found the curriculum to be up to date, and 100% of graduates would recommend Pratt to a friend, family member, or colleague. So we're always very happy to see that kind of feedback. In terms of student job placement, these are some of the kinds of titles we see people getting jobs coming out of this program. And then in terms of where people work, this is some of those jobs. And then it really does spread a bit more between kind of the commercial sector and the nonprofit kind of governmental sector. So everything from Google to like the Intrepid Museum over on the west side. So really, all right, so that is the quick rundown on our data program. Is anyone here interested in our MS in Information Experience Design? All right, we got two. We got two in the room. I think we probably have a few folks on Zoom, I would think, I would hope. So yeah, so the MS in Information Experience Design, this is the Pratt's Human Computer Interaction Program, HCI program. And it's really a program to train folks to be UX designers and UX researchers, and really to really commit yourself to working on interfaces. So the interface can really be anything between a human and a computer. So whether that's a graphic interface, a mobile interface, a talking interface between you and a quick Alexa or Siri. If anyone still talks to Siri, I did see someone in the gym the other day. He was like, Siri, play my 2025 mix. I'm like, it understood you, great. I'm like, I'll be fine just listening to the music that's coming in on the speakers. But it seems like a lot of people, they have that, but then they want their own like curated music. Anyways, so yeah, this program is really designed from people from any background. You don't need to come from the tech industry, that you don't need a design background. It's so, and we'd also say it's a bit different than it is, a 2-year intensive master's degree, just like the other two I mentioned. So it is quite a bit different than a boot camp. There's a lot of these UX boot camps that have been created in the last few years, like, oh, become a UX designer in 6 weeks. But the real difference is that this will help you develop a really unique portfolio that's gonna help you when you're out on the job market, because you'll have developed it over 2 years. And it won't just be kind of a cookie cutter portfolio that everyone has made in a 6-week boot camp. This program has a pretty similar structure. It's 36 credits, typically completed in 2 years in the fall, spring arrangement. Folks in this program will do a course in information architecture, interaction design, usability theory. They'll get into IT. And then we do require everyone to do a course in what we call ethics and social responsibility. So this is really an area that has grown in importance, especially as the tech industry has grown in importance here in this country and also in the New York City area. But then from there's a wide range of electives you can take. And this is just these are most of them. Although we are always creating new ones. So just this, I'm thinking about our curriculum committee meeting just a few weeks ago. We regularized a course on automotive UX. So this is really around this idea of developing the interface, but that interface might be in an automobile. And so thinking about things like, obviously there's like things like Apple CarPlay. How do you develop apps for Apple CarPlay? But then also thinking about like all the various systems that are getting built into cars that are custom for those cars. So a lot of car companies, for example, are creating their own kind of Apple CarPlay equivalent. So we've regularized that. We just regularized a course in what am I thinking? Oh, UX design for kids we're offering. That's kind of interesting. So if you want to do stuff with kids, so looking at the UX design for working with younger groups of people. We did also just introduce something else. I'm kind of blanking on what was it. We did a kind of a data storytelling class, which is a little bit about storytelling and getting folks into a space where they're able to kind of chart out and tell a story with the various designs they're creating. So that's a new one as well. But yeah, lots of good stuff going on in this program. I'm trying to think of something that's some cool stuff that's going on here. I would say one interesting thing about the IXD program is there's a lot of client projects, and actually let me just jump ahead real quick for this. There's a lot of client projects that take place in this program, in the school in general, but also so we'll bring in a lot of projects where someone needs a project done, and the students in the class will work on the project, and they'll get feedback and kind of treat the project as like a client. So you can find there's this group called the Center for Digital Experiences, which is a group that pulls in projects for the IXD program. So you can feel free to check this out, but lots of cool projects getting done, everything from eye tracking studies to analytics projects to social media analysis. So lots of good stuff. But everything you see here has pretty much been done in a class. So just like being enrolled, it's nothing, it's pretty much been as part of a class. So that's one of the things I would say makes this program pretty unique. In terms of the program, it does have a focus. It focuses on both design and research and evaluation. So you do both of those in the program. However, we do think that, coming out of this program, you should kind of really go in one direction or the other. We do find that folks who go through this program find at some point in the program that they're actually a better designer or a better researcher, and we encourage that. And there's different job titles. The portfolios are actually different as well. So if you want to be a research and evaluation person, so you're studying users or coming into the lab to test out interfaces, you're going to really want to have that kind of portfolio versus the designer who's really more looking at the kind of, those kind of the visual aspects and the interaction aspects. In terms of this program, we do have a lot of folks intern in this program from everything, and it's much more in the commercial sector. So a lot of startups to larger kind of companies, so companies you've never heard of to places like Google or Verizon, mega companies. And then in terms of where people work, these are the kinds of job titles we see, and then some of the employers. And I would say definitely with this program, we do have a bit more, definitely more in the commercial sector, and folks, working at doing, a bit of financial tech, a bit of big tech. Um, Financial services is big in New York, and so we do see people getting jobs at Chase and places like that. But then other kind of big tech firms. In terms of the program, this past May, we had 67 graduates who all kindly enough did our exit survey. And in general, they're happy with the quality of the program, and they're happy with the curriculum being up to date. 95 and 94%, which is, you're talking, out of 100 people, there's 6 people who are saying, it's pretty good, we'll take that. Um, so that is the quick lowdown on the Information Experience Design program. The fourth and final one is the Museums and Digital Culture program. Is anyone here interested in that program? Oh, we got one. Oh, we got 2. Great, great, great. So this program, the Museums and Digital Culture program, what I would say this program is really about is it's really training folks to work in the areas of information and communication in the museum environment. So we recently did a study of some of the jobs and what kind of work people are doing coming out of this program. And it really comes down to 2 things. It's really information and communication. So I'd say, what is information? It's going to be things like collection databases, collection information. It's going to be registrar. So less so museum curators. So museum curators are going to be the folks who have deep knowledge around a particular area of art, for example. What we're seeing more is the folks who are working more on the collection side and the kind of the management side of museums, less so the deep experience with art history, for example. Um, but I would say also this program brings in a kind of a strategy, a digital strategy component as well. So this program has a very similar kind of curriculum where it's done in 2 years and 36 credits, 3 courses in the fall, 3 in the spring, 3 in the fall, 3 in the spring, and you're done. So in this program, folks are required to do a class on digital strategy, museum information management. So looking at cataloging cultural objects, and then doing kind of a survey around the various ways that digital technology is used through the museum and Info 679. And then from there, there's a wide range of electives people can take. Some of them are kind of fairly, I would say very much guarded by, what your interests and goals are. Some of them are very specific to this museum education program. For example, we have Info 693 running right now, which is audience research and evaluation. This is a course where students work on an evaluation and research around a museum experience. And it's right now it's being done by the director of I think they call it a visitor experience at the Metropolitan Museum is the instructor, the class meets at the Met, and they do a study, right? And so they're out there, they could be talking to visitors, they can be out, and assembling these reports to find out ways of improving the museum experience. So that one is super museum specific, but then other ones might be kind of related things that folks might be doing in the data program or the library science program as well. There is also we do in this program allow folks to kind of branch out into other parts of the institute. So you can take some classes in what we're calling curatorial studies in museum education. So if you did want to get a bit more into some area of art history or do a bit of museum education or do look at more of that kind of curatorial types of things, creating exhibits. There are courses that you can take, and these are pretty much all on the Brooklyn campus, all those ones that you see there. Either from the main campus as well as in there's a class in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. But yeah, either way, it's lots of good stuff. There are certificates you can do as well. These are those certificates that live within the 36 credit degree. So if they're, conservation, user experience, digital humanities. And I would say in general in this program, as well as in all the programs here at the School of Information, we do a lot of museum projects. So these are, they're built into a lot of core classes like the usability course or digital analytics course. We're kind of always doing museum projects, and we have a really great student club called the Pratt Emerging Museum Professionals, and they're out there, they're doing stuff to help connect folks with museums. So it's good stuff. In terms of graduates, these are what we see from our graduates, the kinds of jobs they're doing. But as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people are doing registrar, communications, collection database, collection information, registrar, cataloging. So, it's kind of it's heavy in that area, I would say, if that's your interest. This is a small program. They had 6 graduates in May, but they're generally happy with the program in terms of the program faculty, and they're happy with the inclusive and welcoming environment. So we're always happy to see that. Did anyone come here to hear about just a standalone advanced certificate? These are really like, say you're here and you're like, I'm not here to do a master's degree, I'm here to just do an advanced certificate. Most of these do require you already have a master's degree to get them, but they're not done by a lot of people. But if anyone's interested in hearing about any of these kind of standalone certificates, I'm happy to do that. Everyone's here for a master's degree, pretty much, right? Okay. Cool, then I will not talk about that. All right, so scholarships, yes, so we do offer substantial scholarships here at the School of Information. When you apply, you're automatically considered for a scholarship. When you get your acceptance letter, if you received a scholarship, it will be in the acceptance letter. And the scholarships can cover up to 50% of the cost of tuition, so they're pretty significant. And I would say 75% of our students do get some kind of scholarship. Now, not all those scholarships are 50% tuition, but it's more likely than not that you would get a scholarship. And the good thing about them is that they do auto renew for the second year. So assuming that you've had at least a 3.0 GPA, you get your scholarship again. So yeah, so those are those. We do also have this pretty interesting fellowship program that we've been doing for a good number of years. And the way this works is students towards the end of their first year, they apply for a fellowship, and they do over the course of their second year, they do a project with an institution that we set out in advance. And they get for next year, it's going to be $8,200. It goes up about 3% every year, but it's about 1 day a week at an institution, and you do it for that from September through May. And pretty much the places we're working with next year are the same as the ones that I have here from the 25-26 school year. And they really range, and there are a lot of good experiences. So everything from, we have a bunch of archives fellowships, so working say for example, the Brooklyn Museum. I was just reading theirs today. They are doing the fellowship next year. They're going to be processing the papers of an artist who's on display at an exhibition that's up right now. And I forget who it is, but I'm literally going to post it in the next few days, the fellowship for next year. We have folks working on art and artifact collections at the Center for Brooklyn History over on Pierpont Street in Brooklyn Heights. We've got folks working on web archiving for the Frick. We've branched into working with small community archives like the Lesbian History Archives. So lots of great LGBT history stuff that you can do, especially at New York Archives. We have a lot of good stuff going on at the moment. Everything from archives to product design. So that's really intended for the UX students. And they do work on products for digital products for the MoMA. We've got stuff going on at the Met Museum, everything from digital products to data analysis to some work in the library. So definitely good stuff there. And the Whitney, we just started running a digital asset and preservation fellowship. And the folks over there are working on their fellowship right now for next year. So they're like they're the last fellowship I'm waiting on. They're like, we're still working on it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, as long as you get it to me by Friday, I'm fine. Because we are going to start recruiting our next set of fellows on Monday. So I'm like, hurry up. But they're the last one. And then we have like a communications fellowship at the Museum of the City of New York. So for folks who want to do some communications and TikTok and stuff like that. Yeah, so definitely we also do things like federal financial aid. And you can certainly reach out to our financial aid counselor, Sonia Chestnut. She has an office, her office is here in the building. And so she can always help with things like the FAFSA and federal financial aid. And so yeah, as I mentioned, all of our classes take place here at Pratt Manhattan on 14th Street, but as a School of Information student, you do also have, full access to all the resources of the Brooklyn campus, which is a bit more of kind of a traditional college environment, with pathways and grass and like freestanding buildings. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. But also you can go there or you can not go there. You don't have to go there. The only event we do there, we do our new student orientation there. But other than that, you kind of never really have to go back unless you want to. And if you want to, go for it. There's a gym there, things like that. In terms of application deadlines, so for the fall, we're still accepting applications for all of our programs. We have not closed applications yet. And the priority deadline was January 5th, but we are, as I mentioned, still accepting applications. Um, and we also do take a spring cohort. So if you're interested in joining next spring, that would be January of 2027. Those applications will be due October 1st. So, if you don't want to start in the fall, but want to start in the spring, we're one of the few schools at Pratt that does admissions twice a year. Yeah, in terms of the application, it's pretty straightforward. You do need 2 letters of reference, a statement of intent. We really take us through what your goals are with this degree and this program. Like, what are you trying to do here? You need unofficial transcripts from all the colleges you've attended or graduate schools. So really what that is you can export a PDF from your college system. And then if you decide to enroll in the school, you get admitted and you decide to enroll, we do need official transcripts, but for the application stage, we don't need official transcripts. So any kind of printout from your college is fine. And we do not require the GRE. We've never required the GRE. And we're happy we've never, because I had to take it. It wasn't that easy. All right. So I don't know who, I mean, all those tests are pretty off. I took the GMAT, I took the GRE. None of it was fun. Anyway, so yeah, no, at this point, I'm happy to open it up for any questions that you might have. Well, we can start first with the room and then we could move to Zoom. If you're on Zoom, you could use the chat. That might be easiest, and then I can swing over there. But let's start with the room first. Any questions folks have? Yes.
How does acceptance vary from like the fall, starting in the fall versus starting in the spring?
Yeah, like the acceptance, and you're talking about information.
Guys, yeah, and the decks.
Yeah, so we take a much smaller class in the spring. So with the UX program, we might be accepting quite over 100 people. For the spring, it might be 20 people. So it's definitely a much smaller class we bring in for the spring. So in terms of like competitiveness, it's probably about the same. But yeah, yes.
In terms of consideration for the scholarships, does it like depend on when you apply, like it, for the priority deadline for January 5th, for example, is it recommended, it increases your options a bit?
So it does, so I would say it does, if you apply by January 5th, you get the most consideration for scholarships. However, there's still scholarship consideration at this stage for sure. And it does start to go down though as time passes, right? So, once we start getting into the summer, scholarships are probably going to be, quite a bit less. But I would say at this point, we are still giving out scholarships. Some of our programs still have scholarship money that we haven't given out yet. So I would say um, the like the data program, the museums and digital culture program. I think we are starting to I think we might have run out of money on the library science one. But yeah, I think we are still definitely giving out scholarships.
Is it? I know it, I'm so sorry, I just started talking.
Yeah.
No, so if, you said, I think you said that it renews each year, right? So then if it's run out and then you apply now and you get accepted, and then for the following year, do you get reconsidered or for scholarships, or is it like basically you're set at whatever assistance or not, no assistance that you might get?
Yeah, so it's pretty much set. So in your acceptance letter, like a typical one might be like, you receive $10,000 a year, that's $5,000 for each semester. And then that carries over also for your second year. So your second year, you also get another $10,000. So yeah, so it's pretty set though. Once that you get that letter, it's the decision's made, and it's not it is what it is, and you either take it or leave it. You could, if you don't like it, what you could do is you can withdraw your application and reapply it in the future, and that would give you a new consideration. But yeah, once it's, if you get the acceptance letter and you're like, this is what I want to do, or I want to come here now, you kind of have to take what's in there. But and as I mentioned, 75% of folks are getting a scholarship. So there's good amount of scholarship money going out. Yes.
Could you talk a little bit more about the 3-year dual degree program? Like, how many people are in it right now? And do you take classes in both schools at once? Like, would you have one in Manhattan, another in Brooklyn?
Yeah, that's kind of how they do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They kind of do it that way. Yeah. I'd say they people try to get it to days of the week, but it's actually, the program has been I think there's probably about 25 people in the program right now. And there's been a bit of growth of interest in that program, which we're always happy to see. And it is, yeah, people do classes on both campuses throughout the week. So for example, maybe not the same day, but maybe sometimes the same day. A lot of folks live in Brooklyn, so they might, you kind of have this this route you take. It's this kind of circle where you like start in Brooklyn and then you end up in Manhattan and then you end up at home in Brooklyn. I mean, that's my life, right? So I go to the Brooklyn campus quite a bit. I'm going there tomorrow morning for meetings. So it's like I start in Brooklyn, I go to the Brooklyn campus, then I come here later in the day, then I go back to Brooklyn. So that's kind of, yeah. So it's not bad. I mean, a lot of people kind of, it's kind of a pretty typical New York City trajectory, is like you live in Brooklyn, you do some stuff in Brooklyn, you come to the city, you go back to Brooklyn. So but I think yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much the details on it. And definitely, if you're interested in that program, you can also, the other person you can meet with is the chair of the History of Art and Design program, Sarah Lindman. She's based on the Brooklyn campus, and she's the chair of the program, but she kind of runs the history of art piece. She's an art historian. And she's the one who really knows that side. So the program is evenly split. So I can talk really specifically about the kind of the info part, but really, if you want to talk art history, she's a good person to reach out to in terms of and what they're interested in is what kind of work do you want to do? What kind of thesis do you plan on writing? What's your area? Are you writing something on contemporary art or Venetian art, or what is kind of your idea? So, yes.
So you mentioned it's typically a 2-year degree for part-time students. What's generally the timeline for that?
Yeah, so you can definitely do you can definitely do these programs part-time. I would say the standalone master's degrees you can do part-time. I would say if you want to do the dual degree, I wouldn't do it part-time, because if you did it part-time, it would take 5 years. So I don't recommend that, but for a master's, for just the standalone master's degree, you could pretty comfortably do it part-time in 3 years. You could potentially take some summer classes and accelerate things a bit more that way. We do have a small summer schedule we offer, and we probably are going to be offering even more in the summers as more people decide to go to school part-time. But yeah, I think, but 3 years is kind of, yeah, we kind of would like to see people graduate in 3 years. Dragging it out much further than that is kind of, not ideal. But yeah, you can hold on to your job and come to school here part-time at night, and it's kind of it might take a while, but it's, kind of, there's a nice thing to hold on to a job that has insurance and, I mean, I studied, I often studied part-time, so it took me I did my doctorate in 7 years, which is for most people it's 5, but that was because I was really studying part-time, during some of those years, so, yeah. Yes.
So for the Museum of Digital Culture masters, when it says digital culture, are you really just more, is it more so just referencing like the information and that kind of aspect, or like, is there some experience, say, in the implementation and the technology behind like digital exhibitions and things like that, like audio, visual, those kinds of stuff?
Yeah, I'm working with our curriculum and teaching lead for that program, Christina Paciuelli, and we've been noticing lately, which wasn't such a problem a few years ago, but become fairly convinced that, the idea of digital culture is kind of, is kind of, it's been, digital culture has been subsumed into culture. It's just culture now. Like there is no separation between digital culture and culture. And a few years ago, you could actually find those separations, but I think that those don't really exist anymore. And so we're looking at maybe potentially refining the name of the program, where we are kind of looking at more specifically calling out what's going on in this program what we're kind of looking at is the idea of potentially bringing in the idea of renaming the program to something like museums, information, communication, and strategy. But those I would say are the real kind of information communication strategy with respect to museums is kind of the real focus, I would say, of this program. And we need to work probably a bit on getting some helping folks with the name clarification, because it wasn't a problem, but it is kind of becoming one. So I would say that that's really the strength of the program would be in those areas. Um, but yeah, I would say, when it comes to, you mentioned video, and that's really the communication piece, right? So we are working on, really helping refine those communication pieces of that program. And yeah, so we're definitely working on that. And we have this fellowship program with the Museum of the City of New York, where they're going to be making TikToks and stuff like that. So we want to make sure we're preparing people for that. So like right now, I'm trying to think, in our curriculum where, where are people making TikToks? So, making sure we have that kind of, making, really preparing people to deal with the kinds of communications work that is needed today. So, I would say that, all of our programs are always constantly evolving. We're pretty much revising them at most every 6 years, but in most cases, we're revising them like every 3 years. So I would say that that program is kind of, we're beginning early stages of doing that next work. The last time it was revised in 2023, now it's 2026, and we're like, okay, it's time to, so. But yeah, there's lots of, I mean, that's kind of how we have, we all have to, that's how we have to live these days, right? We're always constantly, um, you know, modernizing our stuff. So anyways, yes.
So along with like the merit-based scholarships, they are also offer like teaching assistantships or?
So we do not have any TA positions. However, we do have graduate assistant positions, and we give out quite a lot of those. I would say, this year we had over $300,000 in GA positions in the School of Information alone, and that those are almost all of that money is going towards students to work with faculty on research projects. So that could be working at, say, working with the faculty on, the various labs we have. We have like a lab that's focused on like art and information called the Semantic Lab. We have a we have a few different, kind of initiatives like that. And we have like the data storytelling lab that's like a new one that just got created a few. But anyways, we have a lot of money to support students working with on projects with faculty. So that's, and then of course, outside of the School of Information, there is also like there's jobs to like work on campus and like hourly, and then there's like GA money to like work outside of the school. So like working in the library, right? But like that's actually a pretty popular job. Working in the archive, the Pratt archives, right? So yeah, so there's a lot of like kind of and on campus work. I would say though there is not there's no TA jobs, and that's really because we don't there in the School of Information we're all master's students, so there's not really like a hierarchy. There's no like PhD students or master students teaching undergrads. So we don't really have that, but yeah, but there, some of the faculty will hire students to like, hey, like, can you give a workshop on this or something? So it's like you can get a little bit of teaching in, I would say, based on who you're working with. Like if you're, we do also have we have some student workers working as like what's called the design tutor, and you're providing tutoring to students, but it's also like sometimes the design tutor comes in and gives workshops on various things like Figma, these various kinds of tools. We have a tech tutor. They provide kind of advice on like tech tools for students. Like, I'm having a problem with my Python. I keep getting an error. Like they could help you like debug your code, things like that. So there's various jobs that do kind of bring in a pretty real teaching component, but they're not technically like a TA kind of job. Yes.
But for graduate and grad students, especially if you're a fellowship or citizenship, is there health insurance available or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. There is health insurance. It's offered through Aetna. It's a student health insurance program that folks can sign up for. We do really expect folks to have health insurance. Either it could be through your family or it could be through some other means. But if you don't have health insurance, you really want health insurance. And this Aetna plan is a good one. It's fairly affordable. And for health insurance. And that's really because, your cohort is students, which is a group that does not get sick that much compared to a cohort that's like, say, our faculty, where we tend to skew older, so it's like expensive for us. So like we like our, we're, it just costs a lot more. But that's kind of a bit about how insurance works is like it's like who's your group, right? So, for students, they tend to be fairly young and fairly healthy, so they have fairly affordable health insurance. But yeah, that would be a really, yeah, it's a good option, and we definitely want folks to have health insurance because you never know when you might need it, so yes.
Can any program dual master with art history or just the librarians?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's only really the library and information science one. Just because we have to set each of those up with the state. It's just we never quite got there to do that. But yeah, I could see the museums one would be nice. We've got a few bits of interest in that in the past. But yeah, maybe one day we will do that. But at this point, they're not joined together. Cool. Yes.
Do you take any transfer students that are in LIS programs?
Yes, we do. Yes, absolutely. The only thing is that we only accept up to 6 credits from another LIS school. So, so that's the only thing. So we're happy to take 6 credits from an ALA accredited LIS school, but we can't take huge amounts of credits. Cool. Other questions here before I switch to Zoom? Yes.
Can you talk a little more about like, and what fellowship graduate, like opportunities, more for like public librarianship as opposed to very much, and then. But
Mhm.
more, yeah, the public librarianship.
Yeah, public librarianship, yeah, so, I would say, in our. The, oh, sorry, I'm totally in the wrong place of this slide deck. So the one that we have that is really public library focus are, these two at the Brooklyn Public Library in terms of fellowships. The one main one I would say is this Children and Young Adult Library Services one. So this is the one you're working with, out of the Grand Army Plaza Library, the Brooklyn Public Library. And you're working with those folks um, and there's more details in the fellowship application, but I would say, a big focus of public library work is young people and children. That's where a lot of the money is. That's where a lot of the, I would say, the funders, everyone wants to support children and literacy and all that. So that's a really big focus. There's a lot of jobs in that area too. Especially when, we especially saw that during, say, the de Blasio years when there was a bit of an expansion in the public library system. And then that contracted during the Adams years. But then we expect it will kind of grow again under the Mamdani administration. So there is likely to be some more, a lot more roles out in the library world. But yeah, I would say these are some of the fellowships. I would say the New York Public Library does not have great like internships or fellowships at all. They had some issues some number of years ago, so they offer very few. So that's kind of a difficult nut to crack. So there's not much with there, but the Brooklyn Public Library is, they're definitely open for business in terms of, supporting, kinds of experiential learning in public libraries. But yes.
Just a question about the certifications and the certificates. Is it possible, so I already have a master's,
Yeah.
going into a certificate, is it possible that if I wanted to switch that into a master's degree, would that be plausible, or is it like?
Yeah, it is possible. Yeah, so if you apply to join one of the certificates, you're admitted. All those units you use on the way to the certificate, you could use in a master's degree. What you'd want to do though is you wouldn't want to say you do a few classes, you could then apply. You wouldn't want to graduate with the certificate because then it's pretty much those credits go towards a completed certificate. What you do is then you switch into the master's degree and then you get it all at once when you finish. So when you finish, you get the master's degree, you get the advanced certificate. So it's a kind of a technicality, but yeah, you can definitely switch into it. Cool. So I think I have some questions on Zoom, and we always have good questions on Zoom. So I'm happy to answer these here. All right, so Phyllis Kaufman asked, can I meet with someone to discuss a particular program before applying? Yes, definitely. Feel free to reach out to me. Just my email is ACOCCIOL. So if anyone has a question they feel like wasn't answered, or they have something specific they want to talk about that maybe you don't want to broadcast into a room or broadcast on Zoom, feel free to reach out to me. Rose asked, do students in the data visualization program or all programs typically work full-time while taking night classes, or are most studying full-time? I would say we have probably in the school information, a vast majority of people are full-time at this point, probably about 75%. But there is about 25% who are part-time. And but you can definitely do all this stuff part-time. You can take classes at night. And it's totally possible. Back in the day, like, when I started teaching at Pratt 17 years ago, like almost everyone was part-time. So, but we've always supported part-time students. In terms of the fellowship, what are the qualifications to apply for? Is it first come, first serve? So the fellowships, each one has slightly different requirements, and if you go to our website, you can read all about them. And this coming year, it's going to be largely the same as last year, but there's pretty detailed information on all the fellowships. So here's our webpage, experiential learning, fellowships, WBAM, here's all the people who have it now. And then you can kind of read about it here, the various requirements that are needed, what you'll be doing, and so forth. So, yeah, definitely feel free to check that out. And I hope I answered that question. Let me see if I answered that question.
Well, it's pretty competitive.
Oh, the competitiveness of it. Um, I would say they vary. The competitiveness varies. I would say because there is the UX ones tend to be pretty competitive because those are we don't have quite as many as we do in the archives and library area. So those tend to be pretty competitive. And by competitive, I mean that might mean 7, 8, 9 applications received. For the ones that are, but we might have some fellowships, we get 1 or 2 people apply for it. So if you have a 50% shot, it's not, I would say it's not very competitive. So it's gonna really vary. And yeah, so let's see, what else we got? Our night classes, in terms of filler to qualify. Yeah, so feel free to check that out. Chanel asks, I have a first question. Can we talk a little bit more how the fellowship programs works, how to apply, how many students get it each year? Any career-oriented events? Is there a maker space at Pratt? Interesting questions. All right. So, so you apply in around March of the year, you're going into your second year, and you interview for it. The fellowship site selects who they want to work with, and then we assign you the scholarship. And so then your next school year, the scholarship's on your account, and you go ahead and you do your fellowship. And last year we had, I think, about 21 fellows. I think this coming year we have one that has dropped off, and we'll have about 20 fellows. And so the one thing to also know is there are other internships, like kind of other experiential opportunities other than these fellowship programs. So like a lot of these organizations, like the Met Museum, for example, they also have a whole other internship program. You can apply to that. You could do an internship at the Whitney. You can, these places also have internships as well. But this is just like another avenue, and it's also paid. And it also we also call it a fellowship, which people like. So any career-oriented events, yes, we do have quite a lot of career-oriented events. We have mixers, we have alumni receptions where we try to put students in contact with alumni. We do online job fairs. We do an in-person career fair on the Brooklyn campus. There's a career office called the Center for Career and Professional Studies, which does things like resume and cover letters. But then there's also events that we do here as well. There's informal kinds of mechanisms we use, like we have these Google groups where people are sending jobs all the time. So there's quite a bit there, I would say. But yeah, definitely events. We're doing yeah, like lots of good events for careers. We're doing an event coming up soon on LinkedIn, like doing the elevator pitch on LinkedIn, so like some things that are pretty niche as well. So um networking, we're trying to teach people how to network, which a lot of people don't like that. They're like, oh, I don't want to network, but like honestly, people who it, it helps you get a job. It really does. And yeah. So what else do we have here? Okay, so I think Chanel's last question is there a makerspace at Pratt? At Pratt Manhattan, we are working on having something like that. A lot of our rooms are kind of hybrid, like kind of you do some making, but they aren't quite. But like so when we go upstairs, and even if you're online, I will take you on a tour with my phone. You'll be able to see some stuff. But there'll be like, a class might have you make something, a lot of stuff is made on a computer, but there might be some making that happens in the actual class. But I think, to have a space that we call like our maker space, we don't quite have something exactly like that. All right, Terry asked, can you get an advanced certificate while you're getting your master's? Yes, so I would say that's how most people do their advanced certificate, is they're doing the advanced certificate within their 36 credit master's degree. Margie asks, can you share a bit about the MLS and how it overlaps with social justice programming in classes, if any? Can students take classes in other schools for credit if they're relevant to their path of study? That's an interesting question. So the LIS program, you can take one class outside of info. So that's pretty much any other graduate course at Pratt. There's quite a lot there, especially if you're interested in social justice. I would say there are definitely some social justice elements of the LIS program for sure. You will really get exposed to that very early, I would say, in Info 652 reference and instruction, where that is an explicit learning outcome of the program. One of the things students in that program do is, and in that course, is we have this project with the New York Public Library Office of Correctional Services, where we have students respond to reference letters from incarcerated people here in New York State. And so it really teaches this idea that your job is to kind of respond to the information needs of your population, like whoever that population is. If that's incarcerated people, it's your job, you do it. And but it also, I do think it teaches a social justice element, which is this idea that things like access to information should be available to everyone, no matter what their station in life is, whether they're billionaire or if they're in the New York State correctional system, they still deserve access to high quality information. So I think you'll definitely get a sense of that in the school in the LS program, especially early on in the program through reference and instruction. And there's also other opportunities as well. Julia asks, for the fellowships, are all second years eligible, or does it depend on how many credits they have earned? Is there extra cost for program concentration and advanced certificates in the MLS? So no, there's no extra cost for program concentrations or advanced certificates in the MLS. Pretty much what people do is they do their 36 credit degree, and they can get a certificate within the 36 credits, but you are just really paying for that 36 credit degree. So, and also about the fellowships, are second years eligible? Does it depend on how many credits? For the fellowships, you do, as long as you've completed one semester, you're eligible. So say, for example, you start in the spring, we had a cohort join this January, they're eligible to apply for the fellowships. And but yeah, brand new students, first semester students, cannot apply. It's really for people, at least in their second semester, most cases, their second year. Guadalupe asks, regarding the MS DAV, what kind of problems do students typically work on in their final submission? Can you share examples of recent projects or final portfolios? That is a good question. So Guadalupe, send me an email with that question. And I will send you some samples of portfolios. I've been trying over the last few years to post those on the web, but I think we probably don't have great examples, but we do have copies of all the portfolios, so I can definitely go through those and send you some. So just feel free to send me an email and I will get that to you. Anika asks, if I enroll full-time, would I still be eligible to hold an on-campus job outside of class hours? Would income from an on-campus job, such as student assistant TA or RA position, affect my merit scholarship in any way? Interesting. Okay, so as a full-time, would I be eligible to hold on outside of class hours? Yes, so you could definitely hold a on-campus job. You can work up to 20 hours a week here at Pratt. Would your income from your on-campus job affect your merit scholarship? No, it would not. So your merit scholarship, say you get $10,000 when you're admitted, you get that $10,000. If you win the lottery, you still get that $10,000. Your income does not affect it. And Anika also wanted some clarification on the internship for credit structure. How does this apply to my program, specifically information experience design? Is it a required course for an elective? And how do we choose between the credit-based internship and the zero credit option? So I would say internships are not required for any of our programs, including the information experience design program. We do have students who decide they would like to intern, and sometimes they can do that for credit in some cases, or they could just do it like what we call an off the books internship. You just intern and it's between you and the internship site, and we don't even know about it. The one place you really can't do that is if you're an international student, you do have to have authorization, and so we do require folks take a 1 credit or a 0 credit internship class. But if you're a domestic student, you don't need to do that. So, but if you want to get some credit for what you're doing at your internship, that's an option. Currently asks, is part-time available for international students in the information experience design? Unfortunately, no. for in the US to be an international student, you do have to study full-time. That's a rule from the Department of Homeland Security. Does the SI expect to require MLS students to complete the degree in a certain amount of time? There is a limitation. I forget how long it is, but it's pretty long. It's probably like 7 years or something. But yeah, it's a long time. No one's ever hit the limit. Are there tuition differences for in-state versus out-of-state? No, there's not. We are a private school, and so no matter what state you're from, it's all the same. How many grads have jobs when they graduate? It's going to depend on program, but I would say in general, our students are very much employed upon graduation. Um, we very much focus on jobs and careers in all these programs. You know, for us, that's success. Success is not just getting your degree, but is getting a job and career that right out of school. So I would say we do a survey. It's called the First Destination Survey. You can actually find the survey results on Pratt's website, but you can look at like job numbers, but it's all pretty high. So you Google Pratt First Destination Survey. There's like a tableau here, but you can like dig into some of this data. Maybe it's not the most up to date. It only goes to 2023, but you could filter by program, and you can start. The employment rate is really high. I would also say we do have various places on our website where we reference job statistics. So, like for example, in our library information science program, we have this key statistics webpage where we do get quite a bit into job numbers. So, yeah, so like. I mean, our employment rate is on average over the last 5 to 7 years, 92.2%, and so definitely take a look at some of these stats. We do have a lot of good stats on our webpage. All right, what else we got? How many grads have jobs when they grad? Is October 26th the primary deadline for the spring or the final deadline? That is the final deadline, yeah, so they're, October 26th. Is there any opportunity to do anything abroad? Yes, of course, I know, folks gotta go. Yes. So the School of Information does try to run an abroad program, although we did have to take a step back this last school year, this current school year. So, for example, we've recently been running a program in Rome about artist archives. And then there's also international study options here at Pratt in general. Outside of the School of Information, so lots of good stuff. You could feel free to check it out here, but there are quite a number of different programs: Europe, Asia, the Latin America, it's lots of stuff. How many students are usually in a class in the IXD program? For the spring, I would say, or sorry, for the fall, we are shooting for a class of about 65 students. So that's how big the entering class we hope will be. When do you start applying for on-campus jobs? I would say August. So first classes start August 24th. So you can definitely start applying in August. We circulate a lot of those over our Google groups. So definitely August is a good time. Are students typically able to balance fellowships or internships with full-time coursework and still graduate within 2 years? Fellowships, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so to be a full-time student at the School of Information, you're basically putting about 28 hours into schoolwork, but that leaves you another 10, 12, 15 hours you could use towards part-time work, internships, fellowships. So yeah, there's definitely still enough, you could tack on an extra 20 hours of like outside of schoolwork and, whether that's interning, part-time jobs. Tenzin asks, can I still apply for the fall semester? Yes, all applications are still open. Are we able to share ballpark application turnaround with me? Yeah, so applications that are due January 5th, we have those decisions out by late February. So probably, that's really about 7 weeks, 8 weeks at tops, 6 weeks. All right, I think I got through all of the Facebook questions. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with us. I hope that there's a lot of good, lot of good detailed questions there. So I think it might be a good time for us to go on our brief tour of the facility. So if you're on Zoom, I will take you with me on my phone. But for everyone else, we could go ahead and go on a walk. So just give me 1 sec while I switch over. All right, folks, welcome here to Manhattan Center. Um, so let's go ahead and check things out. All right, folks, a little bit about this space. We've been in this building since 2002. Pratt bought the building in 2000. We moved in and we had our first classes here in 2002. And so the building was a kind of open building, and then it was got renovated and fully renovated in 2000 when we bought it. And then we did another set of renovations during COVID. So like a space like this was renovated during COVID and really reopened then. So everything looks kind of new, but that's really because it really started to get used during COVID. But so like a space like this we'll use for obviously just a hangout space, but then also just like events. We do a large event in May called the Info Show, which is a showcase of student work, and we'll take over this large lecture hall over here. We'll take all the chairs out. We'll do poster sessions. We'll do holiday parties, graduation parties, kind of taking over kind of all this space down here on the second floor. Fortunately, I can't open this room door, but there's a really big lecture hall in there where we can remove the chairs. Um, but other stuff that here's in the second floor we have classes. On the ground floor where you came in, there's an art gallery, and we do run shows there throughout the year. Right now, there's actually a really great show on rugs, which sounds boring, but it's actually really interesting. And that is open, and it's open to the public, so it's kind of a nice place to bring in the public. But I would say it's very much part of the culture here is that it's like there's like gallery openings like during class hours and stuff, and some of the sometimes there's pretty well-known artists. So for example, we did a show that just closed a few weeks ago on W.E.B. Du Bois and his influence on African American artists, and a lot of really well-known artists like Carrie Mae Weems and Theaster Gates, and you're like, well, I'm like, oh, I'm like, it's kind of exciting to get to interact with work like that. But so that's kind of some of the stuff that goes on here on the first and second floor. Maybe we can start kind of heading up. Maybe we'll hit the fourth floor next. So unfortunately, this elevator's been out for a few weeks. It's missing a part, and then the storm came, and they had to retrofit the part, and like couldn't get it. So anyway, we're down to one elevator. You can make it. You can make it. You can do it. I think so. This is like yeah, we're good. We're good. This is like not bad by your extended. Okay. Right. Go around. All right, folks. So this is the fourth floor, and it has another department up here, but then it also has the Pratt Manhattan Library. And unfortunately, since it is spring break, I realize that they've already closed. Let me see if anyone's here.
No, why is that? L6.
You think you could show, we could,
I cannot.
you cannot do it, okay. All right,
I get in trouble.
you get in trouble, it's okay. So yeah, anyways, feel free to come down here, we'll just point through the window. But anyways, we do have a library here. So while the main library is on the Brooklyn campus and it's, you know, one of the oldest libraries in Brooklyn. We do have a library here, and what this does is a lot of stuff is bought electronically these days, e-journals, e-books, whatever. However, things that can't be bought electronically are bought on print, and so there's lots of print books that are related to information science. It kind of goes up through over here. There's some study space. There's a conference room you could book. And unfortunately, since it's spring break, they did close during spring break hours. But yeah, it's but generally they're open till about 8 p.m. during the school week. Um, and the this building is open till 1 a.m. every night and then 11 on weekends. So it's definitely like you can like, you know, you want to come in here at midnight on a Tuesday, like you can come here, you know. But yeah, it's, you know, there's like lots of space to just like, you know, get away from your annoying roommate and like, get some work done, you know, it's kind of, there's, yeah, you can definitely do that. But yeah, so let's kind of keep going, heading upwards.
I take the stairs if I want to.
You can, you know, if you want to take the stairs, you can head up to the 6th floor. Yeah, I'm a big stairs person,
That's
but
not sure.
yes, go for it. So we're gonna skip the 5th floor, just because I don't find it super exciting. There's a lot of computer labs in there.
Did you have a basketball team here?
Pride does have one, yeah, it's. I
Are
mean,
they any good?
I've never seen a game. I mean, it's kind of like,
Oh, really?
yeah. Well, I told them an undergraduate thing. It's mostly practice in Brooklyn. They have a big. There's a huge gym in Brooklyn. Yeah, yeah. The yeah, one of the largest the it's called the ARC building. It's the largest indoor spot in Brooklyn after the Barclays Center. So it was the largest indoor play, you know, place in Brooklyn until the Barclays Center came around.
Oh.
But yeah, but they do all the basketball and stuff there. Yeah, but anyway, so here's this is the 6th floor, and this is kind of the hub of the School of Information. It's like a lot of the classrooms are up here, a lot of just a lot of School of Information stuff up here. I would say our classes, we do run them on 2, 5, 6. And so we're kind of spread through the building, but like this is kind of like the hub really. And as I mentioned, it is spring break, so it's a little bit quiet, but you know, we do stuff that's like, you know, for example, running a 5K race. So, you know, most of the stuff we do are like fairly academic, but sometimes we just kind of do like, just like, it's like just for like fun, you know, just like, you know, do you want to run? Let's go for a run, you know. But then we have more serious things like, you know, PAC shows, for example. So we do this annual showcase of student work for the School of Information. It's kind of like a conference. But yeah, so, you know, you could see kind of some of the, just on some of those displays, some of the stuff going on. But yeah, let me see what would be interesting to show you. We can walk in anywhere because no one's here. Um, where are we going here? All right, so this room we call this room the Archives and Cultural Heritage Lab. And that is because we do a lot of the archives classes happen in here. And actually, we were actually gonna meet in here originally, but then there was a whole bunch of students working here a couple hours ago, and I was like, I don't want to kick them out. So we moved. But so we'll do projects in here like archival processing projects, archival digitization projects. For example, we have a bunch of archival processing projects going on. And a lot of these are like materials that we're working with either archives and we're digitizing stuff or processing records. And we're doing that here. So like, we're doing some records projects down here. So literally students, a class very much in the archives area might be structured like, okay, we're gonna discuss archival theory. We'll have readings, we'll have a discussion, we'll have a lecture by the faculty, but then maybe the second half of the class might be like, okay, like now let's apply it, right? And we're gonna create a finding aid. We're gonna use archive space. We're gonna rehouse these materials. Like, it's kind of, there's like a theory and practice component to a lot of our classes. So for example, like that's like, that people are like, why is all these boxes under the table? I'm like, no, that's the stuff we're working on. And for example, let me see if I can extract something that might be kind of interesting. Yeah, so for example, in one project that is happening right now is the classes, we have one of the archives classes working on a collection around this fashion designer. Her name is Mary McFadden, who she passed away a few years ago. And her collection kind of originally went to Drexel University, but then Pratt has taken it on. And the class is working on archiving her work and archiving her legacy. And so the students earlier today were working on this, but like for example, this is kind of how they were storing it, but um, they were working, there's things like, her drawings, for example. I'm gonna pull this up real quick. Hopefully I won't. But they're, like, working on the kind of, the cataloging and the inventory of these kinds of collections. And actually, if you're interested, there's a few of her textiles are actually, in fact, downstairs. When you first walked into the lobby, there's like a small exhibit, there's a dress and there's like a picture of a woman. That's Mary McFadden. So she's kind of having a moment right now here that, we're like literally processing her collection while there's an exhibition of her work downstairs. So yeah, so we do stuff like that. We do, but we also use a lot of this digitalization equipment in here. So everything from like and I can pull something from like this cabin here. For example, our projects and digital archives class has been working on a project with the Lesbian History Archives to digitize recordings of from like public radio stations around women's radio and women's public radio. And so they've been working on this project, but lots of early kind of, 1970s era radio programs and stuff like that. So using all the equipment that's in here to do good conversions. And, that's pretty much the idea these days is that things like old video, old audio, they kind of deteriorate over time. So it's like, it's best to get kind of an archival capture. Yeah, so there lots of archives projects going on. Um, but we do like book scanning. We have scanning manuscripts, photos, film, whatever. So lots of good stuff like that. Other stuff. What can I show you? So like so a room like this one is used. This room is used a lot by our information experience design courses. And so, and a lot of our classrooms are kind of set up like this, where it's like it's set up in kind of a flexible configuration where you could do a little bit of group work, do a little bit of lecture, and we had a question about makerspace. And so while we don't have a space that we call like a makerspace, we do have a lot of these what we've been calling them creative arts, where maybe there's to do some design ideation to get some new ideas. We go off the computers, we get off our phones, and we maybe have a prompt to help us get our ideas flowing. And so, you'll see things like fabric and Legos and, things like that, and papers and note cards. And so, this is really often used by the design students, but we have this kind of configuration in a lot of classrooms. And then what you're seeing on some of the walls here, this is kind of some of the work that's going on in Professor Shruti Chivukula's class. She has this class called service design. where what it's really about is taking a service that like might not be fully functioning as best as it could and redesign it. And so there might be user interface components to that, but there also just might be other things tied to that. And so you can see students are, I think she calls these journey maps. And so students are, they're basically, they use these journey maps to kind of to collect, information about um, various things and to, retrace journeys. Um, this looks like they're working on something related to the New York Lottery. It's very possible. We do a lot of client projects. The New York Lottery is a kind of quasi-governmental um, uh, organization. But yeah, you could see all these journey maps and um, she's always, these are always working on these kind of stuff. But yeah, this is a pretty kind of typical classroom. The other thing you'll note, I'll mention about classes is our average class size is between 11 and 12 students. So like this is actually considered like a big room for us. We, for the most part, classes are small. There's no large lecture halls. There's no 50-person classes, 25-person classes. It's really average 11 to 12. The biggest class you'll ever have is 18 students. So cool. This might mean something. All right, I will have to fix that. Anyways, so all up and down the hallways, you're going to see samples of student work. Some of these are done in classes like the visual communication class. Other ones are done during during the poster session and our annual showcase of student work. And then even other posters are going to be maybe created by students and presented at conferences. So some of these I can tell you were done by like done in classes or done for fellowship projects. For example, this one was part of a one that was done in the information like museum information class. They were doing a project with the Leslie Loman Museum of Art. But anyways, maybe we'll stop in here for a sec. Look at me like a crazy. Um, Anyways, so this is a room that students can book, and so they can just book it through the QR code on the wall. But this is kind of a room for doing some work, but it's also a little bit, we've kind of used it, it's a little bit of a wellness space as well. There's like a massage chair over here, there's a trampoline, and there's some, for some things that are called we call them sensory objects like the lava lamp and some of these other kinds of things here. But it's really meant to help as kind of be a bit of a wellness space, and students seem to really appreciate it. The massages are actually pretty good. And they take, by default, they'll give you a 20-minute massage. You get in, it flips you up, and it's like slightly embarrassing. But what we do is most people what they do is they put this sign on the wall. You book the room, you put the sign, and currently in use, and that means someone's getting a massage. um, but yeah, anyways, we have too many flyers here. But yeah, so anyways, this is one of our kind of more student-centric spaces that students like to use. So posters, a room like this, I don't think we don't really need to go in here unless you want to. But this is just we have some classes that are super techy, like a lot of computer programming. And so like a class that's like where you have to use a computer, this a room like this would be used.
The lockers built with any color.
They are, yes. Yeah, you can get a locker, which might feel very high school, but they're actually pretty popular. And it's kind of convenient, right? So it's like, it's like, oh, I want to go out with my friend, go out to a restaurant now, it's like, just like throw all your stuff in your locker and then like get it tomorrow. Or you could like, I'm gonna go for a jog on the Hudson River, I'm gonna just like leave all this it's like a, it's a nice option. Yeah. So down in this part of the floor is a lot of faculty offices are down here. So as I mentioned, everyone, actually, maybe I did mention this, everyone gets a full-time faculty advisor, and they can talk to you about the curriculum and how it intersects with your areas of interest and career plans and so forth. So a lot of faculty have offices down here. Um, yeah, so more faculty offices, more faculty offices. So they're all kind of down here. This is kind of an interesting poster. So I had folks do this at the fall 25 orientation. And I basically asked people like, where are you from? And and this is kind of what came out. But you can see that, the school is like fairly, it's both domestic and international. So you have a lot of people from the eastern part of the US, people from the western part of the US, folks from India, folks from China, a few folks from Europe, South America, and even Africa. So that's pretty much your cohort is like you kind of get a little bit of everyone, which is kind of nice. Anyways, down here, you can see this is, as I mentioned, we have about a 15-person full-time faculty, and this is kind of the wall of some of the stuff they're working on, some of their recent articles. So you can kind of get a quick sense of like if there's people working on stuff that you're interested in. You could see like, if you're interested in working with youth, for example, like that's Professor Bowler's like a big person in that area at working in the library program with books that faculty and students have written. So yeah, definitely it's just get a quick sense of what's going on. Over here, this is actually kind of an interesting wall. This is kind of our student groups bulletin board. And so student groups are supported by Pratt to basically bring groups of students together. They'll create some officers and they will run student events for the students. And pretty much all these groups are kind of student chapters of national organizations. And they just help, let students do stuff that's like maybe not happening in their class that they want to do. Um, so for example, like our ALA student chapter, the American Library Association, like you can see they're doing a zine fest, right? It's like bring your zine and we're gonna like hang out and look at our zines. Or they're doing a fellowship panel, so it's bringing people together to talk about their fellowship. So it's like, okay, do I want to apply for this fellowship? You can find they're having people talk about them. Just the museum group, they're going to the Cooper Hewitt on March 27th, right? We're actually going to the biennial on Friday, the Whitney Biennial. We have a group tour that's going there, and that should be fun. But yeah, so it's just kind of a place to pull, so student groups like the Society of American Archivists student group on March 12th has someone come in and teach doing workshop on teaching with primary sources. So pretty much like whatever whatever the group of students want to focus on, like they get money. They're like, they can say like, hey, Danielle, can you come in and talk to us about your new book about teaching with primary sources? We'll give you $300. And Danielle writes back, oh, sure, I would be delighted. So you can do stuff like that with the student club, which, you can't necessarily do just like on your own. Um, anyways, there's stuff I see here where I'm like, what is this? Anyways, but yeah, so and then we have our admin office here. This is kind of where I work and where our administration is, but you could always come to the admin office if you have any questions about anything. And I think for our last floor, we'll hit the 7th floor, but are people feeling sporty, want to take the stairs? If you're not feeling sporty, you can take the elevator, but I think for one flight, I'm feeling I can do this. But if you want to take the elevator, feel free to take the elevator. Anyways, yes, so this is the last floor we're gonna visit. This is the seventh floor. And we call this the Pratt Manhattan Student Union. It was renovated during COVID. So it kind of looks like that other space on the second floor we were at. But it's definitely a space for just students to like hang out, get a little bit of work done. And the other thing that's unique about this space is there's a bunch of student services offices over here on the back. And this is kind of student services is pretty much, everything that's like not a professor, you can come here and get that. So it's like there's like financial services, health and counseling, um, the career service office, a lot of those offices are, they'll come in certain days of the week from the Brooklyn campus. So it's like, if you want to see like a nurse, like they're here on Tuesdays at 3, or, you want to see someone from the kind of the Learning Access Center, which is kind of like the disability office. They're here on like Thursday, and you can pretty much get that here. So you can, and a lot of those folks are also available via Zoom, but like if you want to meet someone in person, like go for it. Um, and then there's some food. There's like a farmer's fridge, which I actually was just eating in there, eating from before I came. But yeah, and let's see what else is up here. Yeah, there's a number of classrooms, nothing particularly worth walking into, but there's classes there and classes here. We have a lot of classes on this floor. But anyways, that's pretty much the tour of the building. Definitely yeah, it's open till 1 a.m. So feel free to enjoy it until 1 a.m. But and also you feel free to check out the Brooklyn campus too, which is, really lovely. And it's like, especially in the spring, it's really nice, especially when everything starts flowering. Um, and but as I mentioned, really, pretty much all of your classes are here. But you can always, take advantage of the Brooklyn campus if you'd like. But anyways, that is pretty much the tour. For those of you on Zoom, I will say good night to you. And I will, as soon as I flip my camera around so you can actually see me talk. But have a good night and take care. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. And you have my email in the chat. Have a good